Hi, nerds. I have some cool stuff to show you. These are some of my absolute favorite comics in all of comics. And it's Marvel Silver Age. And there's stuff like Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense, Strange Tales, and that sort of era when you kind of had these not really team up comics, but really cool titles where you had, like Iron Man story and a Cap story together. And I love that. That's fun. But a couple pieces of housekeeping. One is I'm prepping a lot of stuff to go to the old vintage booth, and so I got a lot of toys and action figures, so it's a cluttered mess. But the main thing is I would like you to subscribe if you would, and here's why. I'm not a social media guy, and I try to avoid all of that just to keep my brain from rotting. And so I wasn't even aware of how many followers this Nerds on Earth channel had. I don't really even look. I don't try to monetize the channel. I intentionally said didn't want ads. But even though I wasn't trying to monetize it myself or place ads on the channel, Google started placing ads on the channel. And I'm like, well, darn it. If Google's going to try to monetize it, I might as well do that myself. And I looked, and I need 1,000 followers in order to make those decisions for myself. And so I looked, and I think there's like 800 or something. And so I was like, okay, I guess it turns out I am that guy that cares about subscribers now. So if you could like, subscribe, comment, and all those things, all those Google hoops, I would appreciate it. Now let's look at some cool comics. Okay, I promised you some tales of suspense, and here they are. So these are comics from Marvel way back in the day, the Silver Age. And so Tales of Suspense featuring Iron Man and Captain America. Now at this time, or right around this time, it wasn't common for a lot of superheroes to have a solo title. So for example, Thor did not start out with Thor #1. Thor started out as Journey into Mystery, and it was just like typical kind of like amorphous, how do you define it, like monster fantasy story comics. Thor was introduced as a character in that comic and became super popular. So at some point, the title Journey into Mystery transformed into a Thor title, and it didn't start at #1 because Marvel wasn't obsessed with renumbering at #1. It started later on with just the number that it was on. Same here, Tales of Suspense. Captain America didn't start at #1, started at 100. And so that's what it was. But these were kind of the Marvel team up before, as a lot of folks remember the Marvel team up with Spider-Man. But you also had these titles. Now this was a fun, Amazing Adventures, and that title would feature the Inhumans and Black Widow, which seems like a strange pairing. And a lot of folks don't know that Black Widow did not start out in her skin-tight black costume. I will say she got much more popular after she transferred to her skin-tight black costume. But at first she started as like a countess that was like covered in fur and a different kind of villain. This is a great cover, I think. I absolutely love that. That's Tales of Suspense #73, featuring stories with Iron Man and Captain America again. And this has the Black Knight, and I just think that's just an incredible cover. You have the castle down here, and Black Knight is kicking Iron Man out of the sky. Here is Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense, Tales to Astonish. This one was Giant Man and Hulk. It transferred to feature Submariner more, but at this point, at #66, it was Giant Man and the Incredible Hulk. So isn't that a fun title? So I think this is the first appearance of Batroc the Leaper, if I'm not mistaken. That is Tales of Suspense 76. Oh, I mentioned Tales to Astonish kind of transferred to feature the Submariner. There it is by #85. So 66 to 85 it had transferred. Strange Tales again started. Strange Tales #1 was just Strange Tales, and then at some point Doctor Strange was introduced, and Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and this Strange Tales title introduced so many of the things that have been enduring in Marvel Comics through the year. Um, Obviously, Doctor Strange was introduced, but also Hydra, S.H.I.E.L.D., those sort of things were introduced in this title. Not in #1 again, but introduced later on, and then they became popular. And as we know, Doctor Strange got his own solo title and is one of the most popular characters in all of comics now. So there's 153, just a few issues after. Nick Fury at this time was kind of like a James Bond type character. So this is, looks entirely different than what you see in the MCU, right? And then it was Jim Steranko, who had taken over a lot of the Nick Fury writing duties and art duties. And he was a weird dude, man, but an awesome dude. And he brought a lot of like high glamour James Bond-esque type, to the point where James Bond stories were looking at Nick Fury as much as Nick Fury were looking at James Bond. So 155, a couple issues later, I mentioned Hydra was introduced in Strange Tales. And there's some early Hydra. Man, these guys look cool, actually. Look at those brass knuckles. Here's the title after that, where this one had Nick Fury was the first feature here. This one, Doctor Strange was the first feature. Back to Tales of Suspense with Mole Man, who might be one of my favorite characters in all of comics because he's just absurd and ridiculous, and I love him so much. Another Tales of Suspense, number 99. So we're getting close to the switch to Cap. Again, Tales to Astonish featuring Submariner and Hulk by this point. I think maybe someone was introduced in that title, but I'm too dumb to remember. Here is another Tales of Suspense, number 85, and they just do not make covers like that anymore. Look at that. Look at that perspective on that cover, looking down over top of a chained up Iron Man, Tony Stark. It's so cool. Another Tales of Suspense. This is Nick Fury has crossed over. So good old Stan Lee recognized that to have characters cross over into other titles, kids love that. And frankly, 48-year-old men love that. And so Stan Lee just really popularized that notion, of that idea of a shared universe. And so already, Nick Fury that we talked about that was in his Strange Tales title, he is appearing in Tales of Suspense. This is another incredible title right here. Cap just falling down on the shield. Again, early Tales of Astonish would feature Giant Man and Hulk. And so here's a couple of those. Tuma, this is a title that will, character that will appear in Wakanda Forever. So will show up in the movies there. Back to a couple Strange Tales, number 137 and 145. And again, these had a whole lot of wartime elements in them in that era in American history, as you can imagine they would. So more Strange Tales. And a Tales to Astonish. This is after Tales to Astonish has shifted from Giant Man to the Submariner, but the Hulk was the constant. And by golly, I thought we saw that again. I have lots of that one, evidently. Here's a final Tales of Suspense. I'm going to say a final. I'm lying because our last two are Tales of Suspense, and I'm pretty sure we saw that one earlier as well. All right, nerds, I'm not going to lie. I got a ton of comics to show you. A lot of this era, I actually just picked up a big Golden Age collection, and then I have some bronze as well. Mostly Marvel. That's what I love, but I have some other curveballs to show you. So if you want to follow along, please do subscribe, like, and comment so I can Take the power back from Google. All right, you take care, nerds. Bye.